Welcome to Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial, the home for financial advice in a language you can understand. Created by Marc Freedman of Freedman Financial, he and his team of certified financial planner professionals will discuss timely topics that help individuals and families make smart financial decisions. And now, get ready for this week's edition of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial.
Welcome back to another edition of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial. My name is Marc Freedman.
And I'm Marion Gilman.
And we're here to provide you with some financial advice in a language you can understand. And these days, it's really needed, isn't it?
It really is, yes, absolutely. So we've seen a bit of volatility in the markets, but the stock market. So let's be clear, it's the stock market that's been volatile.
But to be honest, I mean, look, we're financial advisors and we have over 500 households that we take care of. Have the phones been ringing off the hook? Absolutely not. Have we received phone calls? Sure.
Of course, always.
We have.
Yeah.
And Marion, who are the typical people that are calling the office these days?
It's primarily people who are in retirement, who are very concerned. They're older, and they feel like, first of all, they feel like this time is different. We say this, or I shouldn't say that. We don't say this. But many people will say, oh, well, this time is very different because, we have a different president in office, or whatever the cause might be, this time is always different. This time, what we have found over my 25 years, your 35 years, it's never different. In the long run, it's not different. It does recover. We do go on to greater prosperity each and every time. But those are the people who are calling.
Those people, and you know what's interesting is for some that joined this firm over the past 3 years, all they saw was positive performance.
Well, yeah, that's
always a glide path that went in one direction.
Right.
And it was, nothing could go wrong, it seemed.
Right.
Well, we always warn people that markets go up and they go down. And one of our predictions this year, you may recall, if you watch our podcast, go back to our December podcast.
That's right.
One of our predictions was, will we see a 10% pullback in the market? The question was either yes or no. We had asked the question of a 10%, 15%, or 20% pullback. And both you, me, and Christian all agreed, absolutely, we'll see a 10% prediction.
10%, we typically see maybe even twice a year. So that is not an uncommon pullback.
And that's pretty much where we are right now. I mean, we've seen the S&P 500 pull back about 9.5%.
From its highs. Remember, this is from its highs. This is not from where we were before the election or anything. This is from the high that it reached in February.
Right. And so when you see your statement and you see it's gone up to another level, you can't call that my new principal.
Right.
But that's what a lot of people would do, right? They would think,
sure.
I remember when my account was here.
And they keep that in their mind.
And when it was here, if I said, do you want to cash out right now? They go, oh, no, why would I want to cash out right now? It's doing so good.
Market's doing great, right.
Understand that it's going to go through some hills and valleys.
And we also want to point out that what has happened over the past month or so when we've seen this pullback, it's primarily been in large growth stocks, particularly technology stocks. And we've been talking about this for I don't know how long now, because those seven the Magnificent Seven led the way.
Now remember, so
higher.
When you hear about indexes like the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500, or even the NASDAQ for that matter, remember, first of all, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is made up of 30 stocks.
Just 30.
But you don't take 30 stocks' performance and divide it by 30, right?
Exactly. Some of the stocks have greater weighting than other stocks.
Same with the S&P 500.
That's right.
It's not an evenly distributed index. 500 stocks are in it, but you don't take the performance of 500 stocks, divide by 500, and that's how you get your performance.
Correct. And remember, I mean, these are 500 of the largest stocks in the U.S. economy. So all seven of those Magnificent Seven growth stocks are in the S&P 500. They are not all in the Dow.
And those stocks contributed to significant upward performance in the past couple years.
Over 60%, I think.
Yeah, I forget what the number was. It was somewhere around there.
Yes.
But so I just got these are updated figures as of the 11th of March, coming from JP Morgan, which was
yesterday. End of the day yesterday.
Right. And remember, we're filming this usually a week in advance when we're doing this.
Right.
So year to date, here's the performance of the Magnificent Seven. Tesla, down 39%. Apple, down 13.39%. Google, down 13%. NVIDIA, down 14%. Amazon, down 10%. Microsoft, down 9%. But wait, there's a positive one. Meta, Facebook, up 5%. And I'm rounding to the closest whole number here. But as you can well see, those are significant numbers.
Right. But if you looked over the course of the year, they are all still positive numbers for the year.
Yeah.
Even Tesla, I think.
They are. So it's really remarkable to see what's going on here is that on a 1 year performance, 1 year rolling as of March 11th, those 7 stocks are still up 19.62% over the 12 months.
Which is outstanding by any measure.
Any means.
Yes.
But year to date, collectively, the Magnificent Seven is down 14.54% during that period of time.
So that means they were up 34%.
Right.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is what isn't down.
Right.
What isn't down, Marion?
Well, what isn't down, first of all, are bonds. So I know, if you are a client of our office, we always create well-diversified portfolios. If you are in distribution mode or very close to distribution mode, nearing retirement, we keep up to 40, 50% of your portfolio in bonds. And bonds have actually had a positive return year to date. They had a positive return last year, and they have been positive year to date. Now, for bonds, it's not going to sound great. It's somewhere, the bond funds that we use have had a positive return of somewhere between 2 to 3% a year to date. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's huge for bonds.
We're only 2 months into this, almost 3 months into the year.
And remember,
that's a significant return.
That's right. And bonds pay interest payments every month. Or the bond funds, I should say, pay interest every single month. So you still have 10 months of interest payments to go.
That's right.
Along with this gain of a couple percent. So bonds have been a great source of income so far this year and a great bolster to the portfolios.
Right. Of course, we never know what's going to happen with the direction of the bond market, though we feel confident that interest rates on bonds really aren't going up too much. They're probably looking to stay level or perhaps even go down towards the end of the year or into next.
We're getting better inflation numbers, and that is the number that the Federal Reserve looks at if they're going to increase or lower interest rates.
Right, but you'll also know that when it comes to stocks, when we're building a portfolio for you, if you had invested, a lot of people say, well, I'm just going to start with investing in the S&P 500. Right. Well, the S&P 500, as I just told you, as of the 11th of March, is down about 9.5% right now. But okay, I'm not worried about that, but a lot of that is driven by that Magnificent Seven collection of stocks. Remember I told you that half of the S&P 500 is generally in growth stocks, half is in value stocks. And one of the things that we do in building portfolios for you is we will buy a growth investment, but also a value investment.
Correct.
And how is the value side of this equation doing, Marion?
Well, the value side of this equation is down 0.1%, but the S&P 500 is only down 5%.
Down 5. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe it's down 9.5% from its high. I'm sorry. Maybe 9.5%. So let's
Probably
clarify that.
Year to date, it's down 5%.
5%.
Which is, again, that we typically see a 5% down frequently over the course of a year. It could be 4 or 5 times that we might see that over the course of a year. And that's very, very normal. This is not extraordinarily an extraordinary time frame in which the market is down 25% in a day.
Yeah, so let's clarify, because we are on here on video. Yeah. So the 9.5 number that we saw that's down, the large cap growth sector is down 9.5% as of the 11th of March.
And that would include those tech stocks.
Of course. The S&P 500, a combination of growth and value is down about 5%, and the large cap value index right now is down 0.1%.
So essentially flat.
Flat,
right.
that's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
not bad.
So that's market numbers, but Marion.
Oh, and by the way,
yeah. Oh, please.
International is up.
What do you know?
Foreign stocks
About
have done
time,
well.
right? All right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, but all of this, they say the market volatility is all predicated by the recent 60 days of experience we've had in the White House. And, you know, let's talk about that for a minute. What kind of advice are we giving to people? Because we're getting all sorts of perspectives from our clients on what they hear, who they read, what information they get. And one of the things, good or bad, about social media is everybody's an expert now. You have a podcast, you have a blog, you have the ability to put pen to paper, or whatever you call it, keyboard to screen, and you can say whatever you want. And if you like this person, you believe that that person's opinion is fact.
That's right. And we all have a tendency to read people or listen to people who confirm our own beliefs as well.
Right.
So it just reinforces your current knowledge. It's really important to read a variety of sources or listen to a variety of sources so you can have another perspective as well. And, you know, not always just have the doom and gloom of the current of certain people. And I say that because doom and gloom is what sells in the media. So that is typically what you're going to see in leading headlines. You know, stock market plummets. We're going to have tariffs. We're not going to have tariffs. There's craziness going on in the administration. You know, there are certain rationales as well. So you have to take a step back, take a longer term perspective, and also look at varying points of view.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the things that we know, that we've learned historically, and I've been at this 30 plus years, and probably you too.
Yeah.
One thing for certain that always happens is markets hate uncertainty.
Right.
Okay, so think about the last couple of years before President Trump. The markets did well because there wasn't much uncertainty. I mean, granted, I don't think much was getting done, but there was not much uncertainty.
That's
now
correct.
You have the absolute opposite extreme. You have someone that has signed more executive orders than anybody has, I think, in the history of the presidency in just 60 days. You have the threats of tariffs. You have this thing called DOGE. You have people uncertain about what's going on in the government. Will I have my job? What's being cut? What isn't? You have inflation concerns. You have Ukraine and Russia. You have Israel and Hamas. You've got all of these things going on, not to mention illegal immigration, sanctuary cities we hear in the news, all of this stuff. And without clarity, the market just doesn't know what to do.
That's
so
right.
It reacts on sound bites.
Exactly. And sound bites are not news necessarily.
They're not, but they are market movers because we have so much information being thrown into the news media that I was away this past week with my kids, and my son Noah says to me, "Dad, breaking news is no longer breaking news."
That's for sure.
Because it seems like every 5 minutes there's more breaking news, and it's not anymore. You have to kind of sit back and relax, and that's what we're trying to do here.
And you know what? That is the one thing that social media has been terrible for all of us, I think, is that we are constantly bombarded with news, constantly. So, you know, I can remember 20 years ago where we didn't have cell phones that we got news on. We had cell phones that were flip phones that you could actually, you made a call and that was about it. But, you know, before that time, we didn't get bombarded with all this stuff. So we didn't know all this craziness was actually going on, or I'm changing my mind, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You know,
that's right.
So
Yeah, well, we hope this type of a segment, this conversation that we have with you, gives you some rational advice during these emotional times. We will go through that.
Don't make changes. That's the piece of advice we would say before we end is don't make changes on just headlines or just whatever you're being bombarded with that day. Don't make long-term changes, according to
Yeah, avoid the news of the day, avoid the news cycle,
If you can, yes.
avoid the advice you get from friends, neighbors,
Right.
relatives, bloggers. You can even avoid the news you're getting from us. As far as I'm
Doesn't
concerned,
matter.
just turn it all off.
Yeah.
You are investors, not speculators.
That's
You're
right.
in it for the long term.
That's right.
And that's what we call financial advice in a language you can understand.
Yeah.
If now's the time for you to get serious about your financial planning and investment management needs, I hope you'll give us a call. 978-531-8108. That's 978-531-8108. Or visit us on the web where you can get our newsletter. Comes out every Friday at 10:30. You can learn more about our firm, our profile, what we do, the clients we serve, what our fees are, the type of work that you can expect from us. Go to our website, freedmanfinancial.com. That's Freedman.
Too easy in a day.
Financial.com. We'll see you again next week with more financial advice in a language you can understand. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
During today's episode of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial, your host may have discussed specific financial planning and investment ideas that are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Please remember that investing involves risk and may include loss of principal. Always consult a certified financial planner professional, qualified attorney, or tax advisor prior to investing to determine what is appropriate for you. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC.